Boom. We are live.
We are here. So, thank you so much for being here to Hello Main Street, where we're talking about thought provoking business tips for the fellow entrepreneur that are making a difference in our communities. I am your host, Monica Sanchez, coming to you straight from the heart of Central Washington. And I hope that this brings added spice that you need to keep moving forward in your business. Today, our special guest is Kara Jean Wilson, the owner of Taking Kara Business. So, welcome, Kara, and tell us more about what a high performance coach is and how you help other entrepreneurs.
Absolutely. Hi, everyone. It's so nice to see you or have you see me. High performance coach. What I do is I do leadership development. And when we focus on ourselves and we develop ourselves, it means that we can lead other people in a much easier and high performance way. So that could be anything from working on our emotional intelligence and accountability to choosing what we're not going to do, because that's just as important. High performance is not always high activity, and that is a challenge for a lot of us, especially entrepreneurs. There are so many things you should be doing and so many things that you should focus on, and a high performer finds out what works for them and lets the shoulds go.
Hmm. Now, what do you mean when you say lets the shoulds go? Can you explain a little bit more?
Oh, yeah. So here's what I know to be a fact. You, whoever is watching, are an expert. You're exactly perfect how you are. If you want more, you're the only one who has done you and your business as long as you have done it.
Hmm.
So you're the one who knows best what will work for you to get the results you want.
Okay.
And it's really easy for the rest of the world to tell us what we should do.
Yeah.
But we don't like to shit on each other. That's nasty.
Oh.
Well, and I have Tony White in here as well from SEO Dealers. And so if you have any questions, please, Tony, feel free to chime in. I do have a question, though, however, Karen, this is what prompted us to have this conversation today is you had recently did a post about reflect, review, and realign to succeed. So can you tell us more about what you meant by that?
Oh, absolutely. So I came up with the Kara method, not just because it's my name, but it's also the framework. So we clarify, we assess, we realign, and we achieve. And the messy middle is that realign spot. That's that part where you have to do something all the time, every day, forever. And that's really hard, except you're already doing all of the things every day, forever. Like that's already a thing that you're doing. So choosing what you're going to be doing every day forever is really empowering if you remember that it's a re-game. You're going to re-up this all the time. So you have to reflect to see
Okay.
what worked and what did not work, so
Okay.
that you can realign around what does,
Mhm.
and then you can re-engage and get things done.
Okay. And that has helped people that you've worked with already. And I know you're in Tri-Cities, so you're close by.
Yes.
But
Oh,
you also
yeah.
help people online too, so they don't have to be
Yes.
always in person.
Nope, I can't. Have Zoom, can travel.
The
Modern
beauty of
technology.
technology.
Yeah.
And that's so the messy middle, right? Like Brene Brown, thank goodness for that, made it a normalized phrase. And if your middle is messy, you're doing it right.
Oh,
Everyone's middle is messy.
yeah.
That's how that. I don't. If you can come up, here's a challenge to anybody what now and anybody what listening later. If you can come up with a process, any process in life that doesn't have a messy middle, please tell me I am wrong and
Yeah.
come tell me what that process is. Because
Yeah.
in my experience, everything from business to personal development to making tea has a messy middle.
Yeah. Yeah.
Huh?
Well, do you talk about messy middle as far as like successes versus failures, because I know failures has a bad connotation, but a lot of people think that being an entrepreneur, you're just automatically like it's a trajectory that's upward, and it's they don't understand it's like this, and they think it's just easy as pie. So, and they think, oh, if I'm failing, I'm not doing it right, but that's actually kind of the opposite, isn't it?
For me, that is absolutely the opposite. I
Mhm.
consider myself a failure expert, and I help other people become failure experts. Fun fact, FE, failure expert, on the periodic table is iron. So the more
Hmm.
you fail and survive through and learn things from it, because that's what happens. Every time you failed, you learned a new thing, either a thing not to do or a thing you could try different. And
Right.
every time that happens, I mean, just on a physiological, so if we're just talking like periodic table, on a physiological level, your frontal cortex is dynamic and it wants to change and adapt. So every time you fail, you're giving your brain the things it needs to be better next time. So
Yeah.
you're actually becoming as strong as iron in your own processes.
Yeah. Well, and I
Well,
look at it the same way like a baby, right? They don't just come out of the womb and start running, right? They have to stumble and fall along the way, and they grow up and they get stronger and they keep moving forward, right? So
Yep.
that's how I look at it when we're going through this. I don't know, Tony, how do you feel? I mean, you've been in business quite some time too.
well, I know being in sales and marketing and all that stuff. If you don't mess up, then there's something wrong. So I mean, because you're playing it too safe by not messing up,
Oh, yeah, good
and
question. Yeah.
at least that's my experience. How you supposed to learn and grow and adapt, to everything if you're not willing to take a risk. And I think most businesses fail, in my personal opinion,
Yeah.
because they're not willing to take that risk.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Or they
Yeah.
don't understand the things that they should have put in place, like maybe capital set aside. Because, helping people when they buy and sell businesses, they think, oh, I just need $40,000 and I can buy this business. I'm like, okay, but where's the money to keep the thing, keep feeding the machine to keep going? And
yeah.
so, yeah. And then they're like, oh, I didn't think about all those things. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. It's just
Yeah.
like a lot of people, especially in my background, a lot of people don't consider putting marketing into their budget.
Right.
It's just like I build this business, here it is, and
Hmm.
then I don't allocate any funding towards the marketing and branding. They said, I don't need that. So that's
Yeah.
a mistake.
Yeah.
It's like that. If you build it, they will come, except that doesn't work unless you tell them that you built it and show them where it is so they can get there.
Yeah, the Field of Dreams is just
So
that.
true. So true. Yes. Yeah. Because you're like, okay, my doors are open. It's like nobody's coming to the doors because they didn't know anything about it.
Exactly.
So Kara, what is it that you talk about? You say knowledge is not transformational.
This is a spot that a lot of leadership gets in a lot of trouble, right? So
Mm.
knowledge is power. When
Mhm.
you feel like you understand something, you feel so much more capable of achieving it, period.
Okay.
But knowledge is not transformation. So you actually have to go do the things to remember the things. It takes repetition to build that kind of retention. And if you just learn a thing, you might feel like you have power, but until you apply it, you don't really know. It's hashtag adulting, right? But you don't know until you know. And even when you know, you might not do it.
Can you give me an example? Because I'm kind of I'm getting lost in the weeds, and I want to
That's
be
fair.
able to understand it, right?
Yeah.
Because I want to apply it. So
Yeah. So failure.
Mhm.
We know that we all learn through failure. Anybody who has ever watched a toddler knows what failure looks like and how the learning happens through it. A toddler tries to walk upstairs, they don't start taking steps upstairs. They put their foot on the step and they take it off. And they
Sure.
put their foot on the step and they take it off. Then they put a little weight on their foot and they look at you. Are you paying attention? Okay, then they take their foot off. But they fail first. They fail to put the weight on. They fail to get their foot on the right place. We all know that failure is how the human brain learns. But you don't know, until you have that big failure moment where you're like, oh yeah, that's right, this is how we learn. It's not bad, it's just how things are. And even when we know that that's the way it works, it comes up and we're like, but I don't know that all of the sudden.
Right. Right. Okay, I get that. I can appreciate that. Thank you. There was you had asked a question about the biggest inspiration. So for you, who is that and why?
Okay, this comes with a trigger warning, so heads
Okay.
up, trauma. I like to warn people about that. So the reason that I am where I am today is because of my brother. 5 years ago, my brother committed suicide. And yeah, awful. But he did it, and this is weird, someday I'll share this story. He did it really beautifully with real kindness, which is not common in this arena. And because of how he chose to leave this planet, I felt that I had to live for both of us. And when your foundation cracks, when you go through a trauma that shatters wholly bunches of your world, you suddenly have to figure out how to walk on the walls, which is really uncomfortable and really hard. But it does allow you a different perspective on things. So I was really lucky to be working in a company that said that they put people first and then did it. And I was really lucky to be doing their leadership development. I was helping create their corporate training modules for all of their management teams.
Okay.
And so I hid work. I was able, while I was going through this big, massive trauma recovery, going through the grief, I was able to hide and work because it was the one place that seemed to still make sense, since everywhere else clearly lost their mind. And anybody who has gone through any kind of trauma or drama knows that just because we want the world to slow down does not mean the world actually slows down. It doesn't care that we need a minute.
Yeah.
So I was able to hide and work, but it forced me to kind of look at it like this. And I was like, wait, it's exactly the same, but different from this point of view. And that allowed me to stop seeing the shoulds, the standards, and start seeing the people, which is really what leadership is about. And too often in leadership, not unlike parenting, the hardest part isn't anything you're doing with them. It's handling this meat suit full of hormone soup so that mush management can do its job, so that you can do your job, so that they can do their job. And when I looked at it from a mental health point of view, because obviously there was a suicide involved, so mental health comes into that, right?
Sure.
When I started adding the emotional intelligence into the already standards of accountability and responsibility, suddenly it stopped being these funky trigger words that corporations use to try and engage the team. And suddenly it was like, oh, this is so empowering. And then I discovered epigenetics, which is the study of the brain and our genes, and how, not just how we came into this world, but how what we do causes, and we all know everything you do and everything you don't do causes an electrical and chemical reaction in your body. Those electrical impulses, when your little neurons start firing, the more you choose things such as taking care of people, such as emotional intelligence, such as taking into account your abilities and recognizing that some days you can accomplish everything and other days you have to sit on the floor and do nothing but color, because that's going to keep you performing at a high level.
Yeah.
When you start making those connections, it's suddenly so simple. Not easy, but so simple. And my brother is the one who allowed me to force myself to look at it from a different point of view. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. I like that. That's very thought-provoking in a way that I hadn't thought about it, right? And a lot of times, when you that mindset, that shift, instead of saying I have to, right? There was times when I was telling you I have to, and you're like, no, you get to, like just different words that you're saying out there to kind of shift that perspective, so you can keep moving forward. And those are things I've really appreciated. What is, you talk about managers, and you talk about leadership. So what are some key things that they should be keeping in mind? A lot of leaders will be like, this is the way we've done it. This is the way I do it. If they don't like it, tough noogies, What do you say to somebody like that? I mean, it's really kind of hard to shift their perspective.
I say you're an excellent manager and a terrible leader.
Hmm.
I
You
do.
just
I
call
just
them out
say it like
that?
that. Isn't that brutal? But I do.
Yeah.
I don't
I'm like,
find
you
that
just call them out?
honesty. Yeah, I do. And I know this because I'm a terrible manager. You guys, I am terrible managing, and I am terrible to be managed. Nobody ask any of my bosses, they will tell you. But I am super easy to lead. And the difference is leadership starts with ourselves. Yeah. We have to say, cool, well, what I said didn't work. So there's not enough duct tape on the planet to control anyone out there. Mm-hmm. But I got all the power, control, and impact right here.
Right.
So you have to, if that's how you are and that's how they are, you don't get to change them. The only option is it doesn't work or you change yourself. So you can try and manage them and force them to do the thing your way. And then you're going to have to hold their hand because it's your way, not their way.
Right.
Or you can take a step back and say, well, that didn't work. What can I do differently? Mm-hmm. And how can I explain this result to them and then support them in getting there on their own? Because it's their path that they're walking that's going to get them there, which is going to get everybody the best results.
Right. Well, and I think a lot of it has to do with emotional intelligence, right? If some people have to be ready or have to even recognize that they need to make some adjustments. I've come across I've been in business a long time, different businesses and all that. And I've come across a lot of business owners, or not owners, excuse me, but managers who they don't say they're sorry. They don't admit their own fault, and then they just move on. And, having that emotional intelligence, that reflection, some people don't have it. I mean, so how do we help people to get it? It would make the world easier.
It's a really easy answer, and you're going to hate it. Okay, and everyone listening is going to hate it. I know. I know. Let's
curl our toes back.
But it's really this simple. Feedback.
That's hard. That's hard, especially if you don't want to hear it.
Ooh, it is the messy. That is the crux of management, messy middle. Legitimately, we know that, and this is one of those but you don't know till you know, right? So we know that feedback is the only way to find out how we're doing.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we're just living in our own intent in our own brain, and we have no idea if our intent is balancing with our behavior. We don't know. It's just all in our head. I think I'm perfect because I am the center of my own universe and the hero of my story. But so is literally everyone else.
Yeah. Yeah.
So while we're the center of our universe, we're not the center of the universe. And if we want to know how our universe is doing in the universe, we have to ask.
Yeah.
And we're taught that you're going to hear criticism. You're going to hear complaints. And you absolutely might hate the thing that the other person tells you. But the power play here is that just because they're right does not mean that we are wrong. And just because we're right doesn't mean that they're wrong. It's simply allowing other perspectives in. And as the expert of our own universe, we can then decide if that feedback is something we want to use or not.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you have to get it to be able to make that choice. It's literally that simple.
There's a guy, Robert, on your comments, and he says, "I've not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways. It won't work." Thomas Edison,
Yep.
So, I mean, that's a good point.
Yeah.
You have to have failure to have success, right?
Absolutely. It's a part of it. And I just want entrepreneurs to understand that.
Yeah.
Because they don't see that as a part of the right path, so yeah.
Yeah.
And I can appreciate, Kara, for you saying, that they have the feedback, right? I'm just going to share something personal about myself is that, there was a time when my husband and I, we were not seeing eye to eye. And he finally said, "You're making this house walk around on eggshells." And I'm like, I didn't see it, but he saw it and my kids saw it, right? And then he tells me, you need to work on you. And I'm like, whoa, that was like a dagger to my heart, but it was something I needed to hear. Right. So,
Yeah.
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 And
One
and
thing
Tony can
they
back this up
always,
with SEO stuff.
Yeah.
yeah.
Tony, you're going to say something?
I was to say that's one, the cliche saying, only thing that's constant is change, right?
Yeah. Death and
So,
taxes.
and that.
There you go. There you go. So, Kara, I just want to thank you for your time. Tell us, what's one thing that you want us to take away from this experience?
If I could deposit one piece of knowledge that became who you were, that was transfer, if I could just deliver a transformation, it would be that you, in fact, have all the power, control, and impact that you need right here, right now. You are exactly perfect, an expert who has everything that you need to succeed right now. It's so simple. The hard part is you just have to go out and do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. And we shared your information down below there. So if you're wanting to get in touch with Kara, even have coffee chat. She does free webinars, and they're live right on Mondays at 11:30 Pacific Standard Time. And then they're also recorded. So if you need to go back and look at those. And thank you once again, Kara, for your time. I want to thank you guys so much for listening to us and our podcast here. And if you've enjoyed this episode and you like to support us in this podcast, please like and share with others so we can continue to help entrepreneurs, because we are better together. Thank you.